Oh, and you get Eyes of the Grave. You can tell who's undead, because, that's usually a mystery.
Zombies wandering towards you. He's like, hold up, everyone. Don't attack them. I need to make sure if they're undead.
This rotting traveler seems to be a little bit sick. Oh, he's undead!
His arm falls off. Or it can't be
Luckily,
too sure.
you all have an expert here.
Welcome to Monsters Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornigal.
And I'm Will Milden.
And we'll be hanging out with you for a while to talk about anything and everything D&D related. This episode, we're taking a look at the Barbarian Cleric multiclass, and then later on, the Hutijin from Mythic Encounters, a supplemental book from Verbal Dice Press. So pull up a chair and stick around for a while.
Today we're starting off with the Barbarian Cleric. The Barbarian is a pure martial class, and their main class ability is that they rage. When they go into the rage, they take reduced damage, they do extra damage, and that's basically what they're good at. They're good at hitting hard and being hit. Then the other one is the Cleric. Clerics are your holy warriors, much more so than paladins, but that's a different argument. Clerics are full spellcasters. They generally devote themselves to a specific god and a specific domain, and their other separating feature is their channel divinity that is usually flavored by whatever their domain is, or is just a generic get zombies away from me button. The multiclassing requirements are going to be strength of 13 and wisdom of 13. First thoughts, Kevin, what do you think about this multiclass?
So I went into this one expecting to hate it, to be honest, because usually any barbarian with a full caster doesn't work well, but actually came away kind of excited about this one. I think there's a lot of really fun, flavorful characters you can make, and not necessarily being like an optimized member of the party, but a viable one with a lot of versatility and just, like I said, a lot of cool flavor and background.
Yeah, I think I kind of had the same mentality. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm still leaning a little bit towards the initial mentality of you can make this work, but having played a cleric enough, anything concentration based we all know is going to be your big hang up on the barbarian side, so you are definitely going to lose out on some big stuff.
Yeah, overall, just the whole spells thing is very difficult when you're mixing it with a barbarian, because their main feature, rage, prevents them from casting spells, which is kind of obvious, but you can't even concentrate on them. It's not like the druid's wild shape, where you can cast a spell, go into your rage or your wild shape. Once you go into rage, it drops. So that is going to be something that you have to work around. For some reason, I always have this dumb idea that barbarians rely on wisdom, even like a little bit. Like, I'm always like, oh yeah, there's like something in the class that uses wisdom. Not even at all. And their AC thing is Dex and Con. They are the least reliant class on mental stats by far. There's not like even a single subclass that cares about your wisdom.
No, I actually remember this because I just made a level 20 barbarian. And I was like, yeah, I can't dump wisdom because... And I didn't have a because. I just
right.
instinctively knew the barbarian needed some wisdom.
I don't know why. It's like, it just keeps being a thing. But no, it's not. No wisdom necessary.
If you, dear listener, know where the hidden wisdom requirement for barbarians is, let us know on Twitter.
It just kind of feels fitting that they'd be like in tune with their surroundings.
Right.
That sort of stuff, yeah.
And that makes sense too. I mean, I guess it's like, when you're like doing point buy and you have like that 1 point left and you're like, oh, I have to move something from 8 to 9. You're like, oh, I guess I'll move wisdom up. They shouldn't be that bad at it.
So in terms of the biggest obstacle with this, the concentration, where, yes, clerics have a lot of concentration spells, and while a barbarian is raging, that breaks concentration. I still think there's a lot of ways around it. Just because clerics have a lot of concentration spells doesn't mean you have to focus on it. You could use non-concentration spells. You could try and reserve their spell slots for healing, things like that. Or like a spell like Spiritual Weapon. Doesn't require concentration. You would have to cast it before raging, but it's a bonus action cast. So you cast it as a bonus action, go into a rage, and then still have it up while raging. Alternatively, you could also get just a versatility based on how the battle is going. Pick, all right, do I want to rage and get up in melee and hit things with my hammer? Or do I need to be the spellcaster this time, concentrating on something? And you can kind of pick and choose and go back and forth. Or if you run out of spell slots, you have rages to fall back on, and vice versa.
Right. And it's definitely going to be one of those multi-classes where you're not going to be the best at everything that you do. You're not going to be the best spellcaster. That's gone. You're not going to be the best at martial. That's gone as well too. But you're going to be pretty good in either scenario. You're never going to have those moments where you feel like you're just completely out of options. And I think that alone makes it kind of appealing.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely recommend, and we could go into more details, but picking the subclasses where you, at level 8, you get the boost to your melee weapons. So all cleric subclasses at level 8 either get to add, I think it's their wisdom to cantrips, or it might just be a d8, or they could add a d8 of a damage type to their weapon attacks. What they get at that level is really kind of telling of the design intent behind that subclass, where if they're getting a d8 to their weapon attacks, they're intended to be more melee-focused clerics, which of course fits really well with Barbarian. They also usually get proficiency in heavy armor, which I think does screw up one of the Barbarian abilities, the fast movement.
Just fast movement, yeah, which actually isn't that huge of a deal. At least in my eyes. But it's like 10 feet of movement.
Yeah.
It can be, depending on the build you're going for, it can be worthwhile to skip over.
Yeah, but crap, now I'm feeling like I'm forgetting something. Can they rage in heavy armor?
No, the armor explodes.
Oh, no, if you aren't wearing heavy armor. So never mind, scratch that. You specifically do not get the benefits of rage if you are wearing heavy armor. What was that?
That was me throwing away my notes.
Oh.
Okay, no, that's interesting.
That's kind of a big point. I don't know how all three of us missed that. But
No, I definitely did. And one of the big things to consider about this is where your stats are going to go. Because I just built a Barbarian monk, and that relied on, strength, dex, wisdom, and constitution in order to have a somewhat reliable character. And this one is going to fall into the exact same trap, where you're going to want your strength up high because you need to do strength attacks in order to get rage damage off. And you need your dex up high in order to have any type of armor class that's worth thinking about. You can still wear medium armor, and I guess that's something.
That's still pretty good. It's 14 or 15 plus a maximum of 2 dex. You could get plus 15, right? So 17, and then wield the shield.
Right.
18 dex,
If you want
if
to
you go
wield
Forge
the shield.
Cleric, you could give yourself plus 1 AC to your medium armor. I mean, so you can still have decent dex. Or decent AC.
Right. And it's probably going to rely just on that, getting dex to at least,
14.
Yeah, 14 at the very least.
As a plus 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is decent. That's decent dex.
That's not particularly hard. And then from there, it's a matter of, focusing on strength and wisdom. Most likely, con is going to be one that you probably will suffer a little bit in comparison to a straight barbarian, but you're not playing a straight barbarian, so you just have to accept that a little bit.
Right. Yeah. It's a mix.
You also have to keep in mind, though, the core of the barbarian is kind of that damage resist you are assuming you have. So your AC doesn't need to be off the charts. You can just kind of tank these hits.
Exactly, yeah. Or in that particular battle, not rage, stay in the back and be the caster.
Yeah, but still, back to your original point, Kevin, the 1d8 per turn on melee attacks from going into Cleric is going to be extremely useful. It'd be nice if it was every single attack, but that is not the case. Still, just an extra d8 for free is pretty good. And I get the feeling, I don't know this off the top of my head, which I probably should. Does that work on opportunity attacks? Is it like rogues where they can get it if they do an opportunity attack?
Let's look at the specific wording. At 8th level, you gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with divine energy. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you could cause the attack to deal an extra 1d8 radiant damage to the target. And that goes up at 14th. That's specifically the Divine Strike for Life Domain, but it's the same wording for all of them, just different damage types.
Right.
It sounds like, yes, it would happen on an opportunity attack once per turn.
Okay.
Or it says once on each of your turns. That's a little ambiguous. I'd probably give it to him as the DM, but I'm sure there's an official ruling out there.
Yeah, well, I'll once again say if you know the answer to that, you can always let us know. We'll probably be looking it up after this anyways. So, yeah, I think that with that, as long as you're going into one of those classes that gives you the additional 1d8 at 8th level, you can really go as far into either of these classes as you would like. There's obviously going to be really important milestones, especially for the Barbarian. At 5th level, you get your second attack. And if you're going to be staying in step with any martial class, you're going to need to get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it seems like going 5 in Barbarian, the rest in Cleric.
Could be pretty worthwhile, yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting a solid amount of rages. I think at that point it would be
3 a day.
Yeah, 3 a day and the +2 damage. The damage doesn't go up until 9th level anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty hard to get to in a multi-class. You might be able to, but that would be more likely if you were going to do like a dip into Cleric.
Right.
Which I feel like I'd have a harder time justifying.
Yeah. A lot of times like the 1 level dip into Cleric is beneficial because you can get heavy armor and stuff like that, which is not...
And your channel divinity.
Here. Which channel divinity can be used while raging.
Yes.
It's not a spell.
Yeah, that one's really nice. And I think there's going to be some subclasses and domains that mesh really well because of that.
Definitely. But yeah, 5th level dip, so you get your rage 3 times a day. Unarmored defense, where I have a feeling you'll probably be better off in medium armor, but it's there. It's still nice to have it where... that one kind of depends on how the table, how that group handles armor. So with this combination, you're probably better off just wearing medium armor. Will probably be a higher AC. And like at our table, that means, okay, unarmored defense will never happen. It just won't be used because we kind of treat armor how you treat it in a video game. You just have it. You're the guy in half plate. You have 17 AC because of it. You sleep in it. You eat in it. You poop in it. You go to fancy dinners in it. You're just in it. It's like just kind of hand waved. I guess as there are tables out there who take a more realistic approach where your armor's kind of clunky. You put it on when you're expecting battle or dangerous situations, which means there will be times you get into a fight without it. And having that unarmored defense to fall back on so your AC isn't just 10 plus dex, I think would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like at our table, again, the main reason is because we do so much travel, and travel's like a really big part. And a lot of these encounters happen at night. And if every single time I caught you guys at your, 10 AC, or whatever it is, 10 plus dexterity, I think it is by default, it would be really lame. I mean, it just doesn't sound that fun, and I would have to scale down combat so much. But if it was something where you guys got attacked in the middle of the night and you're like staying at an inn, that's a time I could see being like, oh hey, this is one of those moments where you would have taken off your armor.
Right.
So I guess, we're weird, but you're not like sleeping in your armor in the inn weird. That would be a little too much.
Yeah, no, I'm good if I kind of just hand wave it except for story moments.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually like that too, but I also kind of hate it. It's like, when are you wearing your armor? When the DM decides, story reasons necessitate this not to work. Like, it works, but I hate it.
When the DM balanced combat around you not having it.
All right, or for actual non-forced story reasons, just kind of say, yeah, you can sleep in it, it's fine. I think in Xanathars gives rules about sleeping in armor, but then they also give a special type of armor that says you can sleep in it. One of the books does.
Yeah.
So you could just kind of say, we all have the comfy armor, you can sleep in it, it's fine. But then you can set up situations where we have to go to a fancy dinner to woo the king. We're not showing up in our bloody, grimy, nasty armor. You're taking it off, you're putting on fancy clothes. Like, uh-oh, there's assassins there. Looks like you're stuck without armor. I hope someone smuggled in a dagger.
And the answer is always yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's always a dagger somewhere. Yeah.
Will, did you say and smuggled in some plate?
Yeah.
That's a little harder.
That would be a really frustrating combat if you had no, like, oh god, I'm just thinking about, like, equipmentless combat and how fucked, like, a lot of people are. Like, the monk is totally fine. Totally fine. The barbarian is okay, but not going to do well. Everybody else is, like, slaps for 1 damage, moving on.
Well,
that's when you need to pull, like, a Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. Oh, you won't part an old man from his walking staff. And it turns out it's his arcane focus.
It's like, yes, sir, we have a ton of wizards in this place. We know what you're going to do with that. Give it to us now.
Right.
It only worked because there was only, like, 3 Gandalfs in the universe.
They're totally prepared. Just have, like, backup walking sticks. They're like, oh, yeah, while you're in here, you have to use one of our sanctioned sticks.
Yes. There's nothing magical about it. No arcane runes. No blessed by an ancient whatever.
All right, so for the Cleric Barbarian, one thing that I think is going to be a huge thing is just that idea of losing out on spells while you're raging. Now, you mentioned Spiritual Weapon. I think that's a fantastic one to cast. I tried to look for other ones that might be worthwhile, and the first one that came to mind is one that has particularly plagued our game recently, Blindness and Deafness. So that is one that clerics get, and you can use while raging and is not concentration. And as we've discussed probably out of the podcast, this is such an underrated spell that if you can get a blindness and deafness off on somebody, then you can just absolutely ruin their day, on a spellcaster or whatever.
Yeah, and just to clarify, you blind them or deafen them. You don't get both. Generally, you would probably just blind them.
Right. But I mean, that shuts down so much, especially around spellcasters, anyone who does range, really anything. It just shuts down everything.
Yeah, it turns out not being able to see is a detriment.
Yes, like what Kevin said, that seems really fucking dumb, but it's a really important thing in D&D to be able to use your eyes.
Right. And that's usually why all, like, the really tough monsters have true sight or blind sight. When you start to get up, so the entire encounter is not crippled by a level 1 spell or
2.
level 2. Yeah, level 2 spell of blindness.
Another one that's non-combat or just any non-combat spells. Big thing of this is your barbarian generally has 0 outside of combat utility beyond their skills. This offers a ton, so maybe you're not focusing on taking a bunch of combat spells, which is fine. One that could be useful, at least at earlier levels, I kind of liked it, is the Aid spell, where you can give a couple of your party members 5 extra to their max HP for the adventuring day. I think that one can be pretty useful.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, you're still going to only have so many rages, so there will be a usefulness to that spell casting, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, Guidance.
Oh yeah, great one.
Yeah, definitely great out of combat cantrip.
And I think only clerics get that.
Nope, Cleric, Druid, and Artificer.
Oh, Druids get that. Huh, okay.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
And our cleric already has it and forgets to use it every single time. But, I mean, this still is going to allow you to play a more brawly cleric, too, and a more utility barbarian. So I really like that. It's one of those times where going the middle of the road will make you worse at both, but I think there's something to be said about being okay at 2 things in D&D instead of just very shoehorned in.
Yeah, definitely. The versatility.
So what I will say is that what Kevin said earlier in the podcast, where when you track down these 8th level features on the cleric, you get the spirit of what they were going for. Whether you got potent spellcasting, which makes your cantrips, more powerful, or whether you got the D8 on your melee thing. I think you really summed that up with the spirit of, because at the end of the day, none of your pure cleric implementations are going to end up in melee. It just doesn't work out damage-wise. So this is kind of a way to pursue that more. I don't know how well it works, but, competing with cantrips is just tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unless you get extra attack at 5th. And then you can add your strength.
Right, but I totally agree. I think most clerics, we've got a 9th level life cleric right now, and for the first time in I don't even know how many sessions. Since you guys turned 8th level, which is probably over a dozen sessions at this point, she made a melee attack, and she was like, oh, I get an extra d8 to that. Like, wow, that's a horrible class ability if it takes 12 sessions to come up. And I know you can play a life cleric like that. You can play a more brawly one, but she has Toll the Dead, so why? Why would she bother?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess if for pure cleric, you could argue if you're fighting an enemy that has really good wisdom saves.
Yeah.
You know, resistance to necrotic. Yeah. But it doesn't come up. Yeah.
Then we're talking about once every 12 sessions where it's a good idea.
Now, this was the exact same for Saucy. Saucy was a Forge Cleric, which is another one of these melee-focused ones. He used the Divine Strike fire thing twice,
Yeah.
And one of them I was consciously saying, you know what, I'm gonna use this because I don't think I have yet. That doesn't exactly scream this is a vital class feature,
Yeah.
Right.
Nah, I'm with you. Then what's frustrating about that is the other side of it, the one where the cantrips get more potent, will come up all the time.
Right.
So it does kind of, weaken those subclasses a bit. It feels like it's not like level 8 is just sort of like a ribbon ability level for clerics and that's it. Because, half of the subclasses get really good stuff.
The other half, a novelty. That's why you'll notice, actually, I don't think this was intentional at all, but at least 2 of these melee-focused ones are standout subclasses. Life and Forge they've got good shit. So losing out on your 8th it doesn't actually matter.
No, that's what I was thinking too.
That's fair, yeah.
I think overall the curve comes out fine, but when you look at something like the knowledge domain in comparison to the Forge domain, in comparison to the life domain, I think that it isn't as great. At least on like the earlier abilities. It has good stuff. I'm not going to say that it's a bad domain by any means, but I would say by 8th level, they're probably feeling a little bit lacking in comparison to the Forge, in comparison to the Life, in comparison to those other ones. So yeah, I think it hurts a little bit, but it's not to the extent that you could just, take out the Forge Cleric's 8th level and give them the potent spell casting, and everybody would be on equal grounds. I think there would be some obvious differences there.
That's very true, yeah. I think one of us mentioned it last episode where you can't just compare level to level, where that's the tempting thing to do, but sometimes you do need to look at the subclass or the class as a whole and realize, okay, they're weaker earlier on, and so this more powerful 8th level catches them up.
Right. I think that was probably because of the Oath of Glory Paladin that had like the awful start. Oath of Glory.
Oh, yeah.
It's literally a week ago, Kevin. Get it together.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so then looking at different domains to go with this, I liked Death Domain. I thought that was a good option. Their thing is, at first level, they get Reaper, which whether or not this is good for Barbarian, not sure. But they learn an extra necromancy cantrip of their choice off of any spell list, not just the cleric one. And when they cast a necromancy cantrip that normally targets one creature, the spell can instead target 2 within 5 feet of each other. That's pretty nice. I could see that coming up at least somewhat regardless, because there's definitely going to be times as a Barbarian where you're going to be out of range. And maybe you don't want to rage yet because you want to use your cantrip. So, great. You get Toll the Dead on 2 enemies next to each other. Chill Touch, also a good one to do. And I think there was also, what's the other one? Sapping Sting, which I wasn't as familiar with. But that one could pair nicely with Barbarians to set up, because Sapping Sting, I think it might be Xanathar's, but I'm not positive. I just have it written down in my notes, not where it's from. But it only does like 1d4 damage, but it knocks the target prone.
So the kind of like you hit them and makes them collapse.
Yeah, and so if you're doing that on 2 creatures and then you sprint up to them, and it takes your whole action to do, so it might not work out, to be honest, but at least gives you some battlefield control.
Okay, and that's from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, by the way.
Oh, okay, so it must be a new one. So I like it.
Yeah, a new one, which is why not everyone, a lot of people probably won't have access to that.
Can clerics even use Dunamancy?
I don't know. No, it's a necromancy cantrip. That's why you can take it, because the death domain lets you take any spell. It doesn't matter if it's on the cleric spell list. But you're right, Kevin. Some people might not let you take it because the book's just not allowed. But
also, this isn't this subclass a D&D or DMG subclass?
It is the death domain, yeah.
So also keep that in mind.
That's the evil cleric.
Yeah, I hear you, and I know that it's not as bad as like the Oathbreaker Paladin to me.
No, it's not. You're very, very right there.
I see a lot of reasons why you could use this. I actually don't see any big reason to really restrict it from players, as long as they have a good enough reason.
Yeah. The biggest thing is like the flavor of it kind of bends towards an evil character, and if you don't want evil characters, make sure you sit down and have a talk with them about that. But you can still make it work. But yeah, you're right. It's no Oathbreaker where it's like you boost all undead around you whether you want to or not.
Right. I think that it's in the same way that a necromancer is kind of just inherently more evil. Like if you just have necromancers, it's like, okay, why are we going to let you join the party? I think that's the same kind of method with the death domain here, is where you could probably figure it out, but surface level, yes, it is about somebody who just is basically a Grim Reaper.
Right.
But that's very fitting with a barbarian.
It is. I think nature domain is also very fitting. It's kind of interesting with the barbarian when you first kind of hear about and think about the class, and probably most people's first thoughts is just like the pure martial brute, just goes in, mean, nasty, big person, fucks things up. But the absolute vast majority of the subclasses have a really strong spiritual kind of flavor to them. An Ancestral Guardian, Storm Herald, Totem Warrior, and then even like the Path of the Zeal is actually just a divine flavor to them. And so in that sense, I think a lot of these mix well with Cleric, and then a lot of them especially with Nature Domain. I could absolutely see a Nature Cleric also being a Totem Warrior or a Storm Herald, or like the Tempest Domain being a Storm Herald, I think would be really cool.
So Tempest Domain is really good with the Storm Herald Barbarian. At first level, they do get heavy armor, which we already determined doesn't matter at all. But they also get the Wrath of the Storm ability. When a creature is within 5 feet of them and it hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to cause the creature to make a dex saving throw. The creature takes 2d8 lightning or thunder damage, and on a failed saving throw, and half as much on a successful one. And you can use that up to your wisdom modifier, so like a max of 5 times if you're at 20 wisdom per long rest. So that's just very fitting right out the gate. They also get their Destructive Wrath Channel Divinity at 2nd level, which just lets them use Channel Divinity to maximize thunder or lightning damage. So this is all still just Cleric, but those pair very well together, obviously. Mm-hmm. Storm Herald also gets the ability to just drop more lightning damage and give more chances for it.
Right, like they get the Storm Aura. Well, like when they're raging, they could pick a Desert Sea or Tundra and has a different effect, and the Sea one allows, when the effect is activated, you can choose one creature you can see in your aura. Target makes a dex save, it takes a 1d6 lightning damage on a failed. Have as much on a success.
And what I love about that is it is not a action, it's not a reaction, it's not a bonus action. You just get to do 1d6 damage for free every round.
Is that true at all?
No. Nope.
How do you...
Overstating that. So it's, when you rage, you activate the aura, and this effect happens when you activate the aura.
Oh, shit.
Then on each turn, as a bonus action, you can continue to activate it.
Well, that's annoying that they put it up there. Having to read the entire thing to get the rules.
As opposed to skimming to the parts I want and just assuming that's the case.
Okay, so a bonus action to do that is really not that horrible, and you're probably not using your bonus action for anything else unless you used your spiritual weapon.
Right.
But this doesn't cost you, a spell slot or anything, so that can be nice.
Yep, and you can be raging. Yeah, and then the cleric stuff like Wrath of the Storm and Destructive Wrath and things like that can also happen while raging.
Right.
So I just like the flavor. You just really double down on being, you're the lightning guy, and you wade in the battle with your big mole and storms clouds roll around you and strike people with lightning, and if someone hits you, they get zapped and
Right.
crap like that.
I also like that at 6th level they get Thunderbolt Strike. This is the Cleric one, the Tempest domain, which is just when you deal lightning damage to a large or smaller creature, you can push it up to 10 feet away from you. I don't know how often you'll want to do that, because being a barbarian, there's a lot of times that you're totally fine with something being right in front of you, but the option is there, and I like that. And it's very, very easy to get some lightning damage off.
Yeah, well, especially with the sea aura up.
Right.
Every round.
Right.
It's even it's half damage on a save. So it's guaranteed to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So you pretty much have a guaranteed way to push someone around.
Being able to do that for free is actually a bigger deal than it initially seems.
Just pushing people around 10 feet?
Yeah, I mean, that's... Yeah, as a bonus action, that becomes like, wow, you can kind of really just fuck people around.
Right.
Every single round.
Just push people off cliffs.
Multiple
every
times
round.
in fact.
Yeah, there's no limit on how many times per round. The only limit is the fact that, well, you have to be raging, so you can't also cast a spell.
Right. Yeah, but you could also use it in situations where, as you said, as the barbarian, you kind of like to be the tank, the one being hit. So let's say there's someone else being hit, you run up to them, you use your rage and use the sea aura, deal the lightning damage, push them back 10 feet from your party member, and then you move up an additional 10 feet, essentially locking them
Oh, that's a great point.
in place there and giving your party member a free runaway.
That's a great point, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would come up a lot. I think as you start playing it, a lot of creative uses would. To just be able to nudge people around 10 feet for basically free.
Yeah, and this isn't a class where... I mean, the Barbarian alone is enough reason to go higher up in the class, but the 6th level abilities, I feel like are just... The C one's pretty good. The other ones, I don't know if I really love. I guess you just get resistance to lightning damage, you can breathe underwater, and you get a swimming speed of 30 feet. It's fitting flavor-wise. I don't know how often lightning damage comes up, or needing to breathe underwater, but that can be nice.
I can tell you that lightning damage comes up a lot less than most lightning classes wishes it does. It is a very rare spell type, to be honest.
Yeah.
Also with this combination, I like again, just sort of the role-playing kind of cool moment thing where you're raging, you have your sea aura up, lightning striking around, people being blasted back 10 feet. You start getting surrounded, or a big enemy comes up, and you realize that, all right, this is the big moment. And then so you do something like lightning bolt with destructive rats. So it would mechanically, it's you're ending your rage and then casting a spell and then using channel divinity to maximize that damage, which could be a really big hit, can end a battle, stuff like that. But you play it out where you're barely trying to hang on and hold people off as you're blasting lightning out, and you reel back and just huge chain bolt of lightning flows out from you, destroying everything in its path, and you're just kind of left weakened because then you rage for, like, you sort of put all your energy in doing that.
Right. Now, sadly, I think what ruins this is clerics don't get lightning bolt, and the Tempest domain does not either. They get call lightning and they get sleet storm. They don't get lightning bolt at 5th level.
Yeah,
Lame.
I knew there was a trap.
So you could upcast Thunderwave, and that would be kind of cool.
No, it really wouldn't be that cool. I use Thunderwave all the time. It always sucks. Does that max out it for everybody? Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Like when you hit multiple people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. So any type of AoE, lightning or thunder, is super useful.
Which, ironically, you get nothing but.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, yeah, Thunderwave's 1st level spell, so upcast it to 5th. It's now doing 5d8 to thunder damage in a 15-foot cube around you.
Shatter.
Maximize it. That's actually pretty, yeah.
Shatter works as well.
Yeah.
So exactly what you said, just not with lightning.
Yeah, instead of a bolt of lightning shoot out of your hand, it's a wave of thunder bursts from you as your energy leaves your body.
Perfect.
Yep.
Man, they don't get shit, do they?
like spell-wise?
No, as far as lightning-wise. Lightning-wise, they literally...
Yeah.
Why do they have insect plague?
That doesn't seem very fitting, does it?
It does piercing damage.
That is very weird. At 9th level to get Insect wave, yeah.
What meeting? Like, all right, guys, the Tempest domain needs a nice capstone damage spell. Insect plague, insect plague.
Man, he always wants insect plague for a
It's
9th
such
level
a dope
spell.
spell. Put it though. Ah, bugs are terrifying. It's not even a good spell. It's alright. Whatever.
Yeah, it's okay. It does not fit in at all. Like, Nature Domain should get that. Does Nature Domain get it?
No, they get
do
lightning
not.
bolt.
Oh no, they get it. They
get
do
it.
get it. So, like, yeah.
He's gonna find that every single cleric domain gets insect plague at 9th level. Like, it's just
It's all fucking insect plague. What is this? What kind of conspiracy is this?
Truth is, kid, it was insect plague from the start.
Fucking love that spell, man.
So as for like a character concept between the Tempest and the Storm Herald, to some extent it's almost too obvious. I mean, they both like storms. What more do you need?
I say that's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just fun.
But I always like, for clerics, the thought of like a character who found religion. So like a barbarian who tries to master and hone their rage turns to religion, and they're offered a path forward from a god as their kind of champion. And you could like start it off where their tribe is very centered around the worshipping of storms as a whole. And there's just so much that you can do with it from that aspect. But I think the more interesting parts come up in the conflict you create, because you have to create some inner conflict with the character. And trying to... I would play this off where like the character needs to learn that storms aren't just about destruction. It's kind of about like, oh, it's the rebirth that follows or whatever, as your character's like, screw off, Mr. Godman. I'm here to get mad and break stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. In terms of role playing, I mean, I think there's a lot of really cool, fun concepts you could do. Well, you said kind of the redemption arc of finding religion, or a corruption arc where the really religious person devolves into just kind of a rage machine.
Oh, that's good too, yeah.
Or ones where you kind of mix it together to make it work, where you can reflavor rage as the divine energy flowing through you. Stuff like that, especially if you pick a really kind of wrathful god that's like a god of war or something like that. Or you could play a cleric where they're the really pious, patient, wise, kind of like priest, but they have serious anger issues on certain hot button topics or something, and they kind of could like flip a switch and just completely Hulk out.
So, the implication there is a little bit tough because, like, we're talking a combat thing, so it's not like you're going to wait until somebody brings up insect plague to go into a raid. I hate that insect plague is the Tempest capstone spell. No, your trigger would have to be somebody attacks me with a deadly weapon. Which is most people's rage trigger in their defense.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah, compared to just like going into a rage when somebody suggests that you should have crunchy peanut butter instead of smooth. That's the one thing I hate.
The big bad evil guy turns off your rage by agreeing with you. No, yeah, I'm totally on your side on this one. Oh, thank you!
In Kevin's defense, though, it doesn't have to be what the other party says to you in order to get you riled up. It's more of just how you kind of focus on things. Like every time you want to bring out your rage, you just think about how annoying it is that at 9th level in Cleric, you're just going to get insect plague. And like that enough is to make you hit harder. It's enough to make lightning shoot out of your hands if you're Storm Herald.
Right.
It's about channeling that into a productive thing at the time. Outside of combat, it's just going to be a flavor thing. When people bring up your peanut butter preferences, you're going to get mad, but you're not going to expend a rage and start smashing tables. But you could.
You can. You're well within your rights.
I am Team Crunchy, though, for what it's worth.
I don't give a shit, man. Like, I'm actually very upset about the entire controversy. Both sides caring upsets me so much I start smashing tables.
The neutral barbarian. Anytime somebody has an actual opinion, that's what makes you mad.
Oh, this conflict is pointless. I don't care about any of this.
I think another cool way to play it is almost like as if you're like a cleric to a cult. If you start looking into like the demon lords and the devils and stuff like that are listed out in the various books, a lot of them, especially Mordenkainen goes into it, cults to these various demon lords. And they all have clerics to it. Like there's the cultists, and then they kind of talk about clerics to that demon lord or whatever. If you want to play an evil character, or maybe soften it a bit, maybe it's not quite to a demon lord, but a kind of like questionably evil god or something, you could have a cleric to something like that. And all of them seem to have this aspect to them where they kind of devolve into their baser instincts. Especially like, I think cultist to Inogu, or fuck, I should have looked it up. What's the Minotaur one?
Oh, no.
Baphomet?
Yeah, that sounds
Maybe?
about right.
I think it's that one.
Yeah. Yeah, the more bestial ones where there's flavor in there, how they can kind of devolve into these more sort of animalistic instincts and just kind of like tear people apart and stuff like that, which could kind of be flavored into the rage where, so they have their spells, maybe kind of you're focusing on more destructive kind of evil type spells, and then they have the ability to fully succumb to the madness that is their demon lord, god, or whatever, and fully devolve into that rage.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And
to fit that one in a non-evil campaign, maybe you'd have to probably...
Maybe it's an NPC. Maybe it's an enemy. I mean, honestly. You can do that too.
Yeah. Or it's one of the adventures where there's a world-ending threat, and it's sort of reluctant allies to...
Baphomet's just like,
sort of
hey, I also don't like this because the way that... the world is ending isn't the way that I decided it should end. So go stop it.
I had my paladin to Earthnewel, who was a really evil god in the one, and that's exactly why he came along. It's like, all right, we also don't want the world to end, and these guys are fixing it, so we'll just kind of tone down the evil for a while.
Right. Circling back to... or I guess kind of on that topic of the Death Domain and Zealot Barbarian also works very well for that eviler class combination. And I really like the Zealot Barbarian's earliest ability, the Divine Fury, is just very fitting. You can either do extra damage that's radiant or necrotic. Necrotic probably makes the most sense with the Death Domain. And you get a lot of stuff later on with the Death Domain that just makes that better. Specifically, at 6th level, you get Inescapable Destruction, where you can ignore resistance to necrotic damage. That one, I think it's the same thing as like the lightning resistance. Like, how often does that really come up? Probably not super often, but I think all demons are resistant to necrotic damage. I'm pretty sure. So if you're fighting a lot of demons, you're in a good spot. Otherwise, people, probably not so much. I guess, no, I've got nothing. But then the other thing I really liked about Death Domain in combination with this was their Channel Divinity, which I didn't get to mention earlier, is the Touch of Death. They basically just get a necrotic smite, where they use their Channel Divinity, which, as we already discussed, can be used during Rage, to deal extra necrotic damage to the target, equaling 5 plus 2 times the Cleric level. It's not earth-shattering damage, but it is extra damage, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's guaranteed. There's no roll for it or anything, no saves. And it's once per short rest later on, right? 6th level choice per short rest.
Multiple times. Yeah, so, just a good bit of extra damage, and that's always good.
That fits pretty well with the Barbarian combo, that's for sure. Twice you get to do a shitload more damage, I guess.
Right. And overall, I like the Zealot Barbarian as a class. It's really solid. The whole thing of, you can like be more easily brought back to life is like kind of nice. I don't think it's a huge deal. It lets you play a little bit more recklessly, I guess, which is kind of cool.
If you're the one who's expected to cast it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'd call that more of a ribbon ability, just for the sake of flavor.
Right.
Because it's the second thing they get at 3rd level. But it is nice. I mean, it doesn't cost material components when you use a spell, such as Raid Dead or Revivify, to bring you back to life. And like in our current campaign, we have a cleric who has Revivify, and how much time and money have we dedicated to making sure we have enough diamonds to be able to reliably cast that?
Multiple we're probably closing in on 2,000 gold worth of at least bought diamond dust.
Jeez.
It's only come up twice, I think. Right? You guys have only died twice.
I know my character got revived once.
Krusk at least
Logan's.
once.
At least twice.
Twice?
Yeah, no.
I think twice. I think twice.
I think he did get marked like a couple sessions ago. I don't think I've gotten killed.
No, not yet. I do appreciate, though, that every time you guys have gotten killed to some extent, it's like actually been a role-playing moment where it's like kind of a big deal for a little bit. Like, oh shit, I died. I saw the other side. This is a new thing. I feel like this is the first campaign where it's ever been a thing. Where like previously we're just like, oh, I'm dead. Hey, I'm back. Let's keep going.
In the Rain campaign, your other homebrew one, Hatar, the ranger, the half-orc ranger, I did use he died a bunch. I don't know what went wrong with that character, but he kept dying, if you remember, and kept having to be brought back. And I did use that as role-playing stuff, in a negative way. Pushed him more to Groomsh.
Yeah, I remember
because
that.
every time he died, Groomsh yelled at him.
That's great.
But yeah, definitely. Generic D&D advice. If your character dies and is brought back to life, use it as a role-playing moment.
Or don't. That is also a role-playing option.
That's actually true. As long as you're making an active choice about it. If you're actively deciding that your character doesn't care that they die, then that's probably a big red flag for the rest of your group, to be honest. You're like, hey, notice that you died yesterday. How you doing? Huh? Fine. Whatever.
I forgot about it.
Literally happens to everyone eventually.
Tuesday life.
That would be musty, wouldn't it?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Why did you bring me back?
It was so peaceful. A spore druid especially is very, very, very okay with death.
Yeah. But yeah, like Path of the Zealot Grave Cleric would probably be one of those characters where you could justify the being perfectly fond of dying and being brought back to life. That's like a normal part of their existence.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's what they do.
Grave Cleric would also be another great one to combo with. I think the only issue is that at 8th level, they do get the potent spell casting. So if you were to do the dip into Cleric from Barbarian, just for a utility standpoint, you'd get a lot of really good stuff. Just getting Spare the Dying as a cantrip, I think enough is a good reason for if you've like no other healers in your party or no way to like stop people dying, then a 1-level dip, everyone's going to love you.
Oh, and you get Eyes of the Grave. You can tell who's undead. Because, that's usually a mystery.
Zombies wandering towards you. He's like, hold up, everyone. Don't attack them. I need to make sure if they're undead.
This rotting traveler seems to be a little bit sick. Oh, he's undead!
His arm falls off. Or it can't be
Luckily,
too sure.
you all have an expert here.
And their channel divinity is probably one of the best, especially if you have like a paladin or something in your party, where the next attack, you like target a creature and you curse it until the end of your next turn. The next time you or your ally hits the cursed target with an attack, the creature has vulnerability to all of that attack's damage. So if you get like a paladin, I would love the combination of a grave cleric, a paladin, and a divination wizard, where you just set it up for the perfect opportunity every time of like, here you go, paladin, here's your crit. And they're like, here's the level 3 smite, and here's the Path to the Grave channel divinity, and there's 200 damage for you.
Yeah.
Let's not do that ever.
Yeah, grave domains are cool though.
Very much so. Any other combinations here?
War domain.
No, shut up. We're not talking about War Domain. We're not. We're just not. I'm done talking about it.
But it's so good.
If you don't know our feelings on War Domain, then hey, thanks for being a first-time listener, because if you listened to any other episode, you'd have heard us yell about it.
Plus 10 bonus to a roll changes everything.
I would say being Barbarian does make War Domain a bit better. One of the big problems with War Domain is it's still, if you are pure War Domain, even though like all your stuff is based around hitting things better, you're still probably being outclassed by like Toll the Dead and your cantrips and stuff. Where then if you're also a Barbarian, it starts to compete more. So like a Barbarian being able to give themselves plus 10 bonus to their roll to hit is nice, and being able to do an extra attack for a bonus action equal to the wisdom modifier is nice because you get your rage damage and stuff on that. It's still not amazing.
Bad.
I'm saying it's better. I'm saying it's better with the Barbarian.
I said I didn't want to talk about this, and here you are, Kevin.
He just keeps going.
The thing that kills it is the fact that you have to get to 20 in wisdom in order to use that bonus action attack 5 times per long rest. If it came back on a short rest, then I would be willing to entertain this conversation.
That's very fair. Yeah, I've actually, in my mind, I had it a short rest. I forgot it is indeed a long rest.
So say it,
if
Kevin.
You gaslight yourself, the subclass is fine.
Say War Domain sucks.
War Domain sucks.
There we go.
But Tristan.
Did we talk much about incestual guardians?
Yes.
We did not.
On a different podcast.
Ancestral Guardian. That is a throwback to an episode 2 joke.
You keep, even if you don't say incestual, you say ancestral. Ancestral.
Yeah, isn't that it?
Yeah, there's a straw.
Ancestral Guardian.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it. That's where it comes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that one fits really well, I think, with Cleric. I actually did have that in my notes. That Ancestral Guardian Barbarian is very much the protector. Well, if you're raging and hit somebody, you sick your ancestors on them, and if they attack anyone else but you, they get a... That's pretty much what it is. It's
perfectly correct. You just sick your ancestors on them.
They get disadvantage on other attacks, and you could... what's it called? Spirit Shield. Yeah, you could reduce someone else's damage by 2d6 as a reaction. And I don't think there's a limit on that. I feel like I missed this ability, because it's actually pretty good.
No, yeah, it's
at 6th level.
6th level, and it's just your reaction.
If you're raging and another creature within 30 feet of you takes damage, use your reaction to reduce this damage by 2d6. And it increases to 3d6 a 10th and so on. Yeah, there's no... I assumed, for some reason in my head, that was going to be like up to your con modifier per long rest or something like that, but you could just keep doing it.
Yeah. Just stay within 30 feet of somebody. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So like Ancestral Guardian, Life Cleric... I think it'd be a cool combination of like the ultimate protector.
Yeah.
Yeah, take the damage yourself, heal others.
You can still do your like important healing or I guess in the moment healing and combat healing, even if you're raging, because they get the channel divinity that just heals a crap ton.
Right. Yeah, 5 times cleric level.
Right. A crap ton. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Why are you putting mechanics to this?
It's basically limitless.
When I say a ton, everybody knows it's 2,000 pounds. A crap
That's
ton
actually
is
so much more complicated in reality. There's metric tons, there's
That's
short
true.
tons, there's imperial tons.
Huh. Well, whatever. You know that a crap load is 5 times your cleric level.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that. That's official. That's a pretty standardized measurement.
So... I think that's all I have around like the subclasses. Overall, very solid multi-class. Not going to be the greatest in melee. It's not going to be the greatest in spellcasting, but it's probably going to be a little bit better in melee overall. Either way, you get a lot more utility, and I like that.
And it's just there's fun combinations.
Just fun.
Just sounds like a fun character.
And there are much worse sacrifices to make. Like if you went into a monk class. That would be very difficult to do. This one, not so much.
Yeah.
I will dissent a little bit, and my personal opinion is I think this is one of those subclasses that has a lot of like everyday traps, and I think that if you play this, you'll find yourself thinking, I wish I had raged here, or I wish I hadn't raged there. I think that's going to be a very common refrain no matter what you do in this class, is just like, shit, it's really hard to balance these things on like an active every play session kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that would make the class more interesting to me. And I actually like the idea of that, is because now you need to, when combat starts, really assess the battlefield. What are you fighting? And what would be most useful? Your spellcasting or your smashing?
Yeah, it's definitely it's an active thing. I think some people will like it, but it's definitely something to be aware of and be looking out for.
Yeah.
Well, one point I will bring up to argue for just going pure barbarian to kind of hit this flavor is Path of the Zealot does somewhat cover the flavor of multiclassing into cleric. It just like with nature to name cleric is kind of the crossover between druid and a cleric. Path of the Zealot feels like the crossover between barbarian and cleric. Like they already did the multiclass work for you. Here's a dedicated subclass to it. Obviously, you miss out on a lot because you don't cast spells and stuff like that. And it's really sort of pigeonholes you into one way. You're the zealot,
right?
But
purely from a flavor perspective, you are 100% right. Like it's already there, so to some extent you might be stretching a little bit, but it just changes up the class play style so much that I could see not caring about that. Many people not caring about that.
Oh, for sure. And you still can't pull off the crazy Storm Herald Tempest Domain.
Right.
Fun shenanigans we were talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm glad we came up with that one. That sounds like a fun one. And now that's another character I actually want to play.
Ugh.
Add it to the list.
Damn it, Kevin. We can't.
I'm never going to get to play all these.
No, you're not. Until we do our 3-month long mini campaigns where we can just knock out a bunch of different characters.
That's true. Problem is though, then all of those campaigns will need to be mid or high level, because like the Tempest Domain stuff doesn't really come online till probably around level 10 or so.
Yeah, and we'll figure that out when we get to it.
Yeah.
Can't just start complaining about things now. What's that, Will?
And then they never got to it. And all of Kevin's multi-class dreams just never were fulfilled.
That's a really sad story.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think with that, we'll move on to our promotional minute on that upbeat moment. So if there's anything that you think we missed or parts you want to discuss more in depth, you can find us on Twitter. That's at monsters_multi, or on our subreddit, our Monsters in Multiclass. Or if for some reason you're an email person, monstersinmulticlass@gmail.com. Beyond that, make sure to subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support the show, we very recently set up a support us page on our website. So you can just go to monstersinmulticlass.com/support and find all of our stuff there. Right now, we're really looking to try and get each episode transcribed. Has to be done by a person because we use a lot of really weird words like ancestral guardians that these auto ones might not pick up very well. So really appreciate any way you can support. And I think with that, we'll get to our monster, the Hutijin. Today, our monster of the week is the Hutijin. This is a monster that is in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, but has been expanded on by Vorpal Dice Press to include the new Mythic abilities that was recently introduced in the book, Mythic Odysseys of Theros. So the Hutijin stat block is basically the same as in Mordenkainen's, but the additional Mythic parts are also what we'll cover.
So and this is part of a larger book. It's called Mythic Encounters. That's put out by Vorpal Dice Press, as we mentioned, and is available on DM's Guild?
Yes, it is on DM's Guild.
Yeah.
And
so we'll put a link in our description.
Yeah, definitely have a link wherever you found this podcast in the first place. And more importantly, there's like 40 or 50 or a crap ton more of these monsters. There's a lot. It's very detailed. I think 30.
Yeah, they pretty much did the hard work of gathering up all these really cool, powerful monsters and making them mythic. From some from this edition, some from past. There might even be some brand new ones. I'm not sure though. But
I don't know. I won't even pretend to. But everyone that I have looked through has been awesome, and the Hutijin specifically stood out to me because it's easy to talk about. Some of them are just long. There's like a lich, and it's straight up 2 pages of stats, and it would be an awesome fight, but to talk about it, it would be an hour and a half of us going through all of this, so that doesn't sound fun.
Right.
So the Hutijin is a pit fiend that is just a particularly strong one, and it's very devoted to its master, Mephistopheles, which is one of the greater demons, I believe. Or devils, not demons. Big difference. So overall, it's a really huge pit fiend. It looks like a pit fiend, but it's got some crazy scaly armors to it. But the fight is a lot worse than a Pit Fiend. So let's look at the stat block. Are you guys looking at it?
I'm looking
Okay.
at it. All right, so this is the Hutijin. This is prior to any mythic stuff. It's challenge rating 21, armor class of 19, hit points at 200. Its ability scores are crazy. The lowest ability score is 15 Dex. Then it has 27 strength, 25 con, 23 int, 19 wisdom, and 25 charisma.
And I always love when like, oh yeah, their dex is the lowest, but then you look at their saving throws and it's like, no, it's proficient in dexterity saving throws. So it's still +9.
Right. Yeah. Plus 14 to con saves, plus 11 to wisdom. So the 3 big common saves, proficient in. So that's nice. It's also proficient in intimidation and perception, so scare your party. Plus 14 to intimidation.
I don't even know when that would come up.
Which I guess is really fitting. Yeah, I don't know, but it's fitting.
Yeah, I mean, I always love, I am the one to say that skills are really important and you should play out, what it's telling you that really reflects a lot of the flavor of the monster. But I think it's pretty obvious this one's intimidating at challenge rating 21. If you're fighting something that's CR 21 and it's not the least bit intimidating, then I guess it's a sleeper. I don't know how that came out. Some condition immunities. It has a bunch of damage resistances. We'll start there. Resistant to cold. The obvious ones of bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks that aren't silvered. Immunities to fire damage and poison. Condition immunities of charmed, exhaustion, frightened, and poisoned. And then it has true sight out to 120 feet. I don't believe that's supposed to be 12 feet. I think that is a typo. So we'll just say 120 feet. And
yeah, it's 120.
And passive perception of 21, knows all languages. So that, I guess, is pretty par for the course for any big bad monster.
Yeah, and also devils.
Yeah. That's
a lot of it about the damage of immunities and condition immunities.
Right. So into the actual fun parts of it, its very first passive ability is this Infernal Despair. Each creature within 15 feet of the Hutijin that isn't a devil makes saving throws with disadvantage. So this is, that's just horrible for any of your martial characters, anybody that has to be up close, or if it just decides to get up close and target somebody, already very, very difficult.
Yeah, and its spell save is already DC 22, which is also very difficult.
Yeah, and some of the abilities here spells it has: Animate Dead, Detect Magic, Hold Monster at will, Invisibility on itself, Lightning Bolt at will still, Suggestion, and Wall of Fire. Definitely enough off there. Yeah, all of those that I said were at will. So a Wall of Fire at will is pretty ridiculous. They still have to concentrate on it, so it's not like you're going to have the entire battlefield turn into a Wall of Fire, though that would be really cool. And definitely within his rights to circle himself into a wall of fire and have everybody trapped in there with him. And very fitting.
That'd be nasty. Oh yeah, that'd be real bad. And of course have the heat radiate inward. Wall of Fire is one of those spells where within 5 or 10 feet from one side of it, caster's choice, you also take damage. So do it inward. This thing's immune to fire. Just roast them alive. Oh boy.
It has Dispel Magic 3 times a day, which I think is also really good because if there are any great effects that your party has, it can just choose to dispel them. That's pretty rough. Now, I would assume it still follows the same rules where, it's 3 times a day, but it's still probably at 3rd level, which I think is what Dispel Magic is. Anything higher, it'll have to roll to make sure that it dispels it. But that's good in case it needs to, you've burnt its legendary resistances. It's still got a couple things in its pocket to just ruin your day.
Also, it gets a heal. This is only one. It can only do this once a day, but it gets to heal once a day. The heal spell returns 70 hit points. And you could divide it up however you want, so you could just give itself all 70 hit points. Also ends blindness, deafness, disease, stuff like that. So in a sense, you're almost going to be fighting this thing 2.5 times.
Yeah, and
we'll get to that.
Yeah, and I say the thing that's most interesting to me is how low its HP is. It really doesn't have that much health for this high of a challenge rating at only 200.
It is worth noting that a Pit Fiend has 300.
That is interesting, actually, because this thing is it is a pit fiend. It's just a type of pit fiend.
It's a pit fiend wizard in a way, which, they're the nerdy pit fiend.
Yeah.
Who, still has absolutely crushing martial abilities, but now also horrifying spells. And
right.
Yeah, at will. Yeah, lightning bolt too. Just with a DC 22 dex saving throw for it to be save 8d6 lightning damage. I mean,
yeah, not fun.
It's nuts. Yeah. And so I messed up on heal. Heal, you just target a creature, they regain 70 hit points. You don't divide it up, but so that essentially almost makes their health equal to the 300 health of a pit fiend.
They also do have
less
regen.
Yes.
So
that's even more important.
Yes.
Is they do
if combat goes more than 5 and they don't take radiant damage, they're already back to their pit fiend level.
Right. So the regeneration, the Hutijin regains 20 HP at the start of its turn. If it takes radiant damage, the trait does not function. So your party's probably not going to know that right away, but as long as they have some radiant damage, that's pretty easy to shut down, though it does limit what your cleric is casting, or it's forcing your paladin to smite every single time instead of waiting for big opportunities or whatever.
Yeah, we'd probably do that anyways.
I couldn't imagine a paladin not smiting when they hit a 20-foot tall demon.
Nah, I think I'll save it.
Just of course it has magical resistance, so advantage on saving throws against spells or other magical effects, and its weapons are magical.
And then you mentioned legendary resistance, the 3-day.
Yes, I don't know if I did.
In case, somehow you got through,
right,
3 times a day, it just no.
All right, then moving on to its action. So it has multi-attack, just like most things at this point. It makes 4 attacks, a bite, claw, mace, and a tail attack. So one of each. These are not actually anything too crazy. I think, as Will said, they're kind of the wizard ones. And so, I mean, it does hit hard, but it's not like ridiculous for challenge.
The bite is pretty bad.
Plus 5. Oh, the poison, yeah. But yeah, plus 15 to hit for the bite, reach of 5 feet. If it hits, it's 2d6 plus 8 piercing damage, 22 con save, or it'll become poisoned. Oh yeah, if it gets poisoned this way, it can't regain hit points, takes 3d6 poison damage at the start of each of its turns, and you can repeat the saving throw at the end of your turns. So that's kind of a nice poison effect. And yeah, since you can't regain hit points, sort of a really good way to
yeah, but beyond that, the claw, the mace, the tail, they are all basically the same concept here. They do damage with different reaches. They 2d8 for the claw, the mace is 2d6, the tail is 2d10, but they don't have any other special effects. So pretty basic stuff there.
Mm-hmm. And then the Hutijin does have teleport. I could magically teleport up to 120 feet to a non-occupied space that he could see.
Which is pretty nice. But they do have to forego their entire action for that, so that part kind of stinks. Luckily, there's going to be legendary actions to make up for it, but...
Yeah, and also layer actions, I think, too, allows a teleport, which is kind of rare.
I think you're right.
Works. Yeah. We'll circle back to that. It does have a unique reaction, Fearful Voice. So Fearful Voice in itself is not that unique of ability. It's basically... Each creature within 30 feet that isn't a devil must succeed a DC 22 Wisdom save or be frightened for a minute. Then you repeat the same 30 of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself. If you're passive, you become immune for 24 hours. That type of stuff's really common against these big bad monsters. Pretty much all dragons have like frightful presence and stuff like that. But most of those, it's usually an action. I find it interesting where this one is a reaction that it could take in response to taking damage. And it's a recharge of 5 to 6.
Yeah.
But with the immunity, where if you pass it, they're not immune. Like, it does seem kind of like an odd one to do again.
Yeah, I almost see this working better from a flavor perspective. I hate to say it, but like if you have a whole army of people going to attack this thing, then that Fearful Voice becomes very interesting and very useful. Or I guess if you have a bunch of things summoned to attack it. But against like a normal party of 4, the first Fearful Voice is probably going to hit everybody. And if it doesn't, I don't know. I guess it just doesn't matter too much to me if it can use it again. So either you pass the first time or you don't.
Yeah.
It only comes up if, it missed one person because they were 35 feet away.
Right. And then it's like, oh, I can do it again because, why not? It's there if they recharged it.
Yeah. Yeah, but then again, like in a dragon, like I just pulled up an adult red dragon. They have Frightful Presence. It's almost identical, but it's one of the multi-attack options. The dragon can use its Frightful Presence. It then makes 3 attacks. Like I don't know why they wouldn't just do the same.
Totally with you. Yeah, it doesn't seem to change that much. All it does is, to me, just kind of take something out of the actions column because that's already oversaturated with 4 different attacks and a teleport. But I don't see any mechanical reasons to make it a recharge and to make it a reaction. Well, never mind. I get the reaction part, I guess. There's something to be said about that. Because then it can't do opportunity attacks that turn, which it's not is it the Frighten where you run from them? No, you just stand still. I don't know. It's a reaction. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else to add there.
Yeah. Okay, then it has legendary reactions. Legendary actions, same as every other. It has 3 of them. It could do them at the end of other creatures' turns. Regains its 3 at the start of its turn, so it could make an attack once with its mace. It could do Lightning Storm. It costs 2 actions. The Hutijin releases lightning in a 20-foot radius. All other creatures in that area must succeed on a DC 22 Dex save or take 48 lightning damage. I'm going to fail half as much on a success. So it's a bit of an AoE as a legendary action. Or its last one, it could...
You know who would like the Lightning Storm? Tempest Cleric.
The Storm Herald Barbarian.
Finally, I get to resist damage!
No, I meant who would like to be able to use that because they can't they don't have any AoE lightning. Anyways, I do like that. It's just good damage, 48, and can consistently do it. I think, as I was mentioning earlier, if you wall of fire yourself in and limit the battlefield on the party and kind of force them inside, then doing it a lightning storm follow-up 20-foot radius around you, it's just the type of cruelty that would be expected from such a difficult fight. And he can teleport out too. I mean, just thinking about that, he could just wall of fire around himself and rope everybody off, and then he can just bamf out whenever he feels like it.
Right.
All right, so that's everything in Mordenkainen's. But then going back over to the Mythic Encounters book, it adds some layer actions. So in here, layer actions, if you're not familiar, on initiative count 20, losing ties, can take a layer action to cause one of the following effects, and you can't use the same 2 effects in a row. That's pretty standard. So one of it is it can target a creature within 30 feet that can see or hear him. Hutijin uses his telepathy to make a promise to that creature. The target must succeed on a DC 22 wisdom saving throw or they become charmed, and that lasts until the devil takes their next layer action. So that one's kind of interesting to me because I feel like it's pretty basic. It just gives the charmed condition, which basically means they can't attack him unless he attacks them.
Yeah,
it's pretty basic, but also really powerful when you think about, as I was mentioning earlier, the Paladin, the one that they probably want to shut down the most. You could get pretty creative with that as a DM, I think.
definitely.
Next one is he can use his teleport action, which is just nice. He's got a lot of mobility between using that as a layer action and as a legendary action. And then lastly, he can recharge his Fearful Voice immediately. So that was the one we were just talking about, where I don't know why you'd want to use it again twice. This seems to be giving a lot of ways you can use it, and I just don't know why.
It feels like we're missing something, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's maybe he's just using it once on each creature. I don't know. The only thing I can think of once again is if your characters are doing a lot of summoning, and beyond that, who cares?
Yeah, I got nothing for that one.
That's all right. So, with that, next is the mythic portion of this fight. So if you're not familiar with the concept of Mythic Encounters, as this was something that came up recently, it's basically like a stage 2 to your larger boss fights. Generally, the trigger is bringing the creature down to 0 HP. So in this case, that's exactly it. Bringing Hutijin down to 0 HP from 200. He will instead drop to 1 HP and gain 200 temp HP.
It's by calling on the power of Kaniya.
Yes. Who I don't really know. I assume
Kaniya is the realm the level of hell he's on.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I am glad that you remember Mordenkainen's, because I read that entire section.
I'm the only person who gives a shit about lore at all. But yes, Kanya is like the coldest place in the universe. It's obscenely cold, so that you'll notice this entire Mythic Encounter is kind of cold themed.
Right. And so while this happens, his AC becomes 21, and any creature who hits Hutijin with a melee attack suffers 2d8 cold damage, and all of Hutijin's weapons attack deal an extra 2d8 cold damage, in addition to all their other damage dealt, which starts to make his claws, mace, and tail, and bite all a lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So almost more important than even that. Oh, do you have something to add?
I was saying the when you hit him with a melee attack, it's every attack. It's not like a once per turn. So if you're a fighter who's hitting him 3 or 4 times, you're taking 2d8 cold damage. You don't save for it. It just happens.
How do you like that capstone now? Now that you're taking 8d8 cold damage to yourself.
Right.
Yeah, so I think even more on top of that, I mean, that alone makes for a very difficult stage 2. But then he also will get some new things he can use for legendary actions, the mythic actions. The first one is General Stance. Hutijin takes on a martial stance, holding his mace in a defensive way. Until the start of his next turn, any creature who moves into Hutijin's reach provokes an opportunity attack. It's just an extra attack, but that would still be limited to his reaction.
I do also just like the idea of a stance. I think it's something that could be cool to expand upon, where you could have these monsters where they have like one of 3 stances they could be in, each with a different pro and con. It could be their legendary action to switch it, but then it's just kind of like this activated effect.
That would be interesting. Like they have their attack stance where they do more damage or have like an extra attack. Their defense stance, their AC goes up, and they get something like this where they get opportunity attacks, things like that.
Yeah, you see it. See that type of stuff a lot in video games, like RPG video games, but not something I see much in D&D.
No, I think there's Mythic Encounters as a whole is taking something that has been around in video games for like decades now and turning it into a D&D format. There's tons more things I think to take from boss battle design that you just don't see played out in D&D stat blocks.
Right.
So the next one is Summon Aid. So you can summon a devil of CR 10 or lower in an unoccupied space within 120 feet. Once this action has been used, it can't summon another one until that summoned creature is dead. So a CR 10 or lower is not anything to scoff at. That's a pretty strong devil right there.
Most definitely. Yeah, and then you're in the CR21 mythic fight, and all of a sudden there's constantly CR10 up that you have to contend with. Because you can just keep redoing this every time it dies.
The one thing that would be nice, though, is... well, I guess I'd count that as dead. I was thinking if you banish it, at least for that minute, would he be able to bring up another one?
So we haven't gotten into this, but I don't know. Can you banish something from another plane on its own plane?
You're right. If you were on that plane, it probably wouldn't do anything. And I don't think there's any reason why you'd be fighting Hutijin on the material plane. Seeing as it...
Yeah, he's specifically not made to make house calls. So
right.
Probably in his house, and like the banishment's probably not going to work.
I think that it would still work. Like you could be on the material plane and just like banish a bandit.
Right. It wouldn't do the thing where they like stay banished, I believe.
Right.
Yes.
But so for a minute, you stop him from having a challenge rating 10.
Right.
Companion.
Right. And he has no way to dismiss the companion. It's not like he can use it to just like crush them out of existence. So as I read it...
Right. You would need to break concentration.
Right. And so he'd basically just for a minute there not be able to bring in that CR10. It'd be easier than killing the CR10, to be honest.
Right.
The last mythic action is Slow Ice. The Hutijin summons power from Kanya, targeting a creature he can see within 120 feet and conjuring ice to form at its feet. The creature must succeed on a DC 22 Dex saving throw, or its movement speed is reduced to 0. This lasts until any creature within reach uses its action to break the ice. It's just nice. It's kind of cool being able to freeze somebody in place for, I won't say for free, but for a very low cost.
Yeah, definitely. It's...
Yeah.
like I said before, that goes with the theme too of how cold Kanye is supposed to be.
Yeah. So between its 200 hit points, its ability to cast heal on itself, and then the mythic traits, you're basically fighting this thing almost 2.5 times.
While it's summoning as many CR10 demons as it would like in a row, not at the same time.
Yeah. Becomes a heck of a fight.
Yeah. I think the only thing that, and I don't think this really matters, but it's just that idea again of you probably need to have minions otherwise, but they don't all need to be CR10s coming in, just because single target, this thing just does not have the health to really stand up against high level adventurers. And it's challenge rating 21, so it's not going to be, I won't say it's going to be super easy, but it's going to be pretty easy for a party of level 20s to get through 200 HP. 17 and below, like between that range, is probably where you'd be fighting this thing. But you definitely want to put some thought into how quickly this guy can be killed if you just let him be a meat sack. He needs to be moving around the battlefield. Needs to be
right. Does have 60
yeah, he's got that along with the teleport. So he has the mobility, and you kind of got to use that to your advantage by shutting down the player's mobility. It sounds rather annoying, but that's when they start bringing out spells like haste so that they have 120 feet of movement when they dash or whatever it is.
Right.
And any other...
Or casting fly and spell.
Yep.
Paladin.
Oh, yeah.
And then baiting out is dispel magic.
Right.
And
yeah, because that's a good point. When you said fly, that didn't connect for me. But this isn't going to be a single plane fight. He is going to be going up and down into the sky. And if your paladin can't fly, he's done for.
Right. And also then, as mentioned before, don't forget it, this Hutijin has regeneration. So even though its hit points are lower, every round it gets 20 back unless it is taking radiant damage this round, which is, there's no guarantee.
Yeah, there isn't. I'd hate to be, as you said, Will, a fighter trying to go up against this thing.
Yeah, especially in the second stage.
Right.
Which I think is like, that's the thing I like about these Mythic Encounters is you can at least create a different encounter. Mm-hmm. And this one did a really good job at that, of it becoming a much more martial fight. This thing is a off-brand pit fiend if you ignore the spell casting. Once it goes mythic, it's evened out. It can really stand toe to toe, and that punishing you for hitting him means that he would probably be less inclined to get out of the battle when possible, and
higher AC
spells.
Mm-hmm. So
everything about it just reshapes the fight.
Yeah, and if you were like trying to think tactics as a DM, I would definitely be saving that. Oh, wait, does the heal even work then? Yeah, I guess the heal would work on the second stage, but the temp HP, once that goes away, then its current form goes away.
Yeah, I would use the heal just on the first stage then.
I take that back.
Otherwise, that starts to feel a little...
Right. I forgot that it adds temp HP. I think that the in-book Mythic Encounters don't do the temp HP additions. It's just they heal whatever amount of HP back. But regardless, that's how it's written. And for that, I would use heal in the first part.
So in terms of why you would fight this thing, it would need to be deliberate. Within its flavor text, it talks about how Hutijin hates the mortal realm. He just does not have followers in the material plane because he just hates all of it. Hates everybody there. Hates mortals. Hates the material plane. Doesn't bother trying to get followers. You're not really going to find a cult of Hutijin to infiltrate or anything like that. And so he just never really goes to the material plane. And awful Mephistopheles actively encourages him to stay in the Nine Hells because he knows that if Hutijin leaves, that then he is then vulnerable. Because Hutijin is kind of the main protector of these names are tough. Of Mephistopheles.
Right, so that right away is a great reason to fight them. If Mephistopheles is your actual huge big bad evil guy at the end of this campaign, then this makes for a fantastic lead-up fight that, you're never going to get to Mephistopheles unless you find a way to get Hutijin out of the way. And you're not going to be able to summon him because you can't find any information about him. He literally sends devils out into the material plane to destroy and kill anybody who knows how to summon him or how to do anything around that. So your party's best bet is going into the 9 hells, meeting him at his door, and killing him, and then hoping that they can get out of there and rest up so that they can go fight Mephistopheles at a later time.
Right. And if you want to make this a really tough fight, I mean, Hutijin's whole thing is that he does command 2 companies of Pit Fiends. And so you have to, in addition to Pit Fiend by itself is a challenge rating 20 fight. So get through a bunch of those, he would probably then have some with him in his fight.
Yeah, and that's going to be, it's just extremely deadly. I don't know. You start to get to those ranges where it's like, how could you ever possibly survive? But that's why you just generally don't travel to the 9 hells. It's not really suggested.
Right.
Unless you're an official Wizards of the Coast campaign. Then you're there by level 3.
I also like to point out in the new book, Mythic Encounters, the art for Hutijin is so much cooler than the one in Mordenkainen.
Yeah, all of the art in here is really good. So that's a thing.
Yeah, the one in Mordenkainen looks kind of dated. I don't know if that was like a throwback to older editions, but
you'll see that in a lot of the books. You'll see like art that doesn't seem to fit, but it looks like it fits from a book from the past. So I feel like it probably was intentional. But yeah, I really like the Mythic Encounters artwork.
Looks very imposing.
But yeah, any other thoughts on the Hutijin?
No, it's pretty dope. Any Arch Devil is going to be a very epic encounter. But like you said, Jared, and like we say every single episode, your sack of meat's not going to last as long as you think it's going to last. Mythic Encounter is one way to definitely add to that. Minions is another. I like the combination.
Awesome.
Yep, definitely.
All right, that's everything that I've got about Hutijins. And Kevin, take it away.
Thanks for listening.
Next time on Monsters and Multiclass.
Join us as we discuss the Fighter Sorcerer multiclass and then Mind Flayers from the Monster Manual with our very special guest, Treant Monk. You may know him from his God Wizard guides and just about every one of his other guides. I think he's got a guide on everything. So, YouTube channel. We're super excited to talk with him, so make sure to tune in.